In this video, we are going to look at the relationship of the two different types of heat capacities that we've found and how that changes the gas laws. Recall from video 8 that a definition for the infinitesimal heat was this, where we have the change in internal energy with respect to the change in temperature at a constant volume, and the change in internal energy with respect to volume at a constant temperature. But we defined this thing in green here to be the constant volume heat capacity, so we can make that substitution. And if we keep the pressure constant and divide through by the partial of temperature, we end up with this, so we end up with this term right here. And since the change in enthalpy is equal to the heat at constant pressure, then we can actually make this substitution right here. But that is just our constant pressure heat capacity, so we can put that in right here. And if the system is an ideal gas, then the change in internal energy at a constant temperature is 0. So this thing in red ends up becoming 0. And so we can also use, because it's an ideal gas, that the change in volume with respect to the change in temperature at constant pressure is equal to this nR over P. So we can substitute that in, and what we end up with is this right here. Or for molar quantities, we end up with this right here. And so it's only different by this factor of R right there. But what are the values of these heat capacities? If we remember from the thermodynamics of molecules, which was video 5, for a monatomic ideal gas, the thermal energy due to translations was this 3/2 RT. For a monatomic ideal gas, there are only translations, so this is the average internal energy. And because we have this for our constant volume heat capacity, and since the heat capacity is just the derivative of 3/2 RT with respect to temperature, we end up with this right here. So 3/2 times R, so that just gives us this 12.471 joules over mole Kelvin. And since we know now that the constant pressure heat capacity is just the constant volume heat capacity plus R, we end up with this right here for our constant pressure heat capacity. Again, this is for that monatomic ideal gas. This is what we observed for small monatomic gases like argon, neon, and helium, which are good approximations of ideal gases. So those are small atoms, they're not bound to anything, so they end up being good approximations of our ideal gases. Recall from video 5 that for a linear molecule, so now not monatomic ideal gases, we had this for the rotational energy, R times T. So for a linear molecule, we now have that the constant volume heat capacity is equal to this 5/2 R. So before, when we did not have the rotational energy, which is RT, it was 3/2 R. So now we add another R onto it and it becomes 5/2 R. For vibrational energy, we have this, but we know from video 5 that the high temperature, low vibrational energy ended up being this, or this right here for a linear molecule, which is what we're looking at. So the 3n minus 5 times RT, where n is the number of atoms. This means that for a single vibration, such as with carbon monoxide, we end up with this right here. So we have 3 times 2, which is 6 minus 5, which gives us 1, so it's just RT. That means that for the constant volume heat capacity, where before when we did not have the vibration, it was 5/2 R, it is now 7/2 R. Below, I have this figure here, which I just took a picture of out of the textbook I'm using. What we see is that increasing the temperature makes the heat capacity go from depending only on translations and rotations to depending on translations, rotations, and vibrations. So we know that the 5/2 R, that was when it was just the translations and rotations. Then if we heat up as we go from left to right, it starts approaching the 7/2 R, which was our translations, rotations, and vibrations. Monatomic ideal gases such as helium have a temperature invariant heat capacity, but real gases do not. Most attempts to try to do this look like this, where we end up having these power series like this. We're not going to go through any of those right now, but this is kind of the approach to doing that, where we have to fit these A, B, and C using real-world data. Recall that for an adiabatic gas, no heat is exchanged, so the change in internal energy is just equal to the work. We also get that for an ideal gas, we have this right here, and so we can put in our C sub V right here, our constant volume heat capacity, and because we have an ideal gas, the change in internal energy with a change in volume at constant temperature is equal to 0. This means that for an infinitesimal adiabatic process, we end up with this for the work. We integrate, and so we end up getting this right here, or we can have this right here if we were doing the molar quantities. We saw in videos 6 and 7 that an infinitesimal amount of work can also be expressed as this, where we have our external pressure times the change in volume. We can equate these two, but notice here we're using the infinitesimal amount, and so we have the external pressure times the infinitesimal change in volume equals the moles times the molar amount for the constant volume heat capacity times the infinitesimal change in temperature. If the process is reversible, then the external pressure is always equal to the internal pressure, and we can use that the internal pressure is equal to nRT over V, so we end up with this right here. If we do some rearranging and canceling, we end up with this one right here. Assuming constant heat capacity, so again, we're assuming an ideal gas, we integrate both sides to get this right here, and so when we do a little bit of rearranging, we end up with this right here. So R times the natural log of VI over VF equals our constant volume heat capacity times the natural log of TF over TI. We could use that the constant pressure heat capacity is equal to the constant volume heat capacity plus R to make this substitution for R right here. And so we do some rearranging, we end up with this right here. We'll just define C sub P over C sub V to be equal to this gamma right here, and then C sub V over C sub V would be equal to 1. So we end up with this gamma minus 1 right here. We do some rearranging, and what we find is VI over VF to the power of gamma minus 1 equals TF over TI. For a monatomic ideal gas, we know that the constant pressure heat capacity is 5/2 R, and the constant volume heat capacity is 3/2 R. So we can solve for our gamma minus 1, and we end up with 2/3 right here. So that's what we put in for the gamma minus 1, and so we end up with this right here. So the VI over VF raised to the 2/3 power equals TF over TI for an adiabatic reversible change of a monatomic ideal gas. If we did this for the pressure instead of volume, we would end up with this right here. So PF over PI to the 2/5 power equals TF over TI, which means we can combine the two like this because they are both equal to the TF over TI. We can then do a little bit of rearranging, and we end up with PF over PI equals VI over VF to the 5/3 power. We rearrange, do a little bit of index changing, and what we end up with is P1 V1 to the 5/3 power equals P2 times V2 to the 5/3 power for an adiabatic reversible change of a monatomic gas. Notice that this is a different form of Boyle's law from the isothermal process that you would have probably learned in a general chemistry class, where temperature does not change, because for an adiabatic process, the temperature does change since heat is not exchanged. In the isothermal Boyle's law scenario, heat comes from the environment and goes into the gas as it expands, and that keeps the temperature steady. This prevents the pressure from dropping too fast. In an adiabatic change, the gas expands and does work, so that means that the work is negative because the gas is the thing doing the work, it's losing energy. So no heat enters to replace that energy spent doing the work, and so the temperature must drop because the reduction of internal energy. And because the temperature is dropping while the volume is increasing, the pressure decreases faster than it would in the isothermal conditions. The 5/3 exponent represents the steeper drop in pressure. So for instance, if we have 2 liters of gas at 1.5 atmospheres and we double the volume to 4 liters, what is the new pressure in the isothermal and adiabatic systems? If we do isothermal, what we find is that a doubling in the volume gives us a halving in the pressure, whereas for adiabatic, a doubling in the volume gives us more than a halving of the pressure. So the pressure goes less than half, and that is because of the temperature drop that also happens. But anyway, that was everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you found that helpful, and I will see you in the next one.